Hello, everybody. Welcome to What Do You Know About China, the show for English speakers to learn more about China, its culture and history and politics. And for this episode, I'm joined once again by my friend and expert on China, David Xia. How are you today, David?
Good, and it's quite long since we did
It's
last
been a
time.
couple months, and
Yeah,
the news cycle happens very fast these days. It seems like there's so much happening in that part of the world and the relationship between the United States and China. So we'll talk about North Korea and other topics today. I wanted to start, though, on economic policy and all the news that's happening on trade policy and tariffs. So the United States came out very strong, the Trump administration, and announced some strong tariff policies towards Chinese goods, and it looks like the Chinese are responding in kind. What do you make of that situation?
yeah. Well, I think the Trump administration emphasized on the points. It's free trade should be on the base of a fair trade. It's kind of a fair trade or should be mutually beneficial, not only for one.
Yeah.
So I think the U.S. bear for quite long, about 2 decades, even more, because when China joined WTO in the year 2001, Chinese government promised to do everything, including opening the market like financial sector and telecommunication, petrochemical, and video movie industries, I mean entertainment industries, and all those things that the banking, all those things. Yet the tariff, I mean the custom tariffs are not cut so rapidly. Given 5 years grace period, after that still very high. For instance, the tariff for autos. Imported autos could be 250% previously, and now dropped to like 25%. It sounds good. Yeah, there's some other charges and fees and other taxes. So it made all together like 150%. Still very high.
Yeah, so American companies are still frustrated in their attempts to gain access to the Chinese market. Now, what about some of these other charges that Chinese companies or the Chinese government are, not honest brokers as far as trade secrets, and that they're raiding American companies and just not treating them fairly under the rules of the WTO? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, in most cases, yes, and it's not equal treatment. It's not like a free trade members should do.
Yeah.
And then also there's a violation, serious violation of the intellectual property rights.
Right.
And also there even including military secrets, top secrets. So
Yeah.
that Trump, he said he would not stand it anymore.
Yeah. So do you
Yeah.
think Trump is? I mean, he's a lot of bluster, but do you think he's serious about going through with these tariffs, or is he just using this as a bargaining chip to get a better deal for the United States?
I think he's serious on the
Yeah.
on the strategy, because it's not one time. It's not a recent strategy. Actually, he made that before his presidency, and also there in 1980s when he was still young.
Right.
He talked to the media and about his ideas of the
Yeah.
country and his strategy, and
Yeah.
if he became the president.
Yeah. Now China is not taking this lying down. They've come back strong with some of their own promises to levy tariffs on American goods. Where do you see this going? Is this going to evolve into a full-blown trade war?
Yeah, I believe so. If China would not give their big compromise, would not cut off their, the trade surplus fundamentally, that means the U.S. would do a lot of things like 301 Act and other measures to against China's trade. And also there's a new new method is called NEE. I've got NEE DA, something like that. That means some emergency economic power act. That means for a certain period of time, the government or administration can decide to take the very special measure to punish whether it's the trade partner or some other things.
I see. Yeah.
And also, I think because nowadays, U.S. will be controlling the chips. Yeah. So that
Microchips.
I mean, for those computers,
Right.
all those that's a core competitiveness, and so China feel greatly affected.
Yes.
And then they said, why you don't sell that to us? And then they said they will do the retaliation.
Right.
Like U.S. beef or the corns or the agricultural
soybeans
products.
and
all those things will be banned.
And we'll see how that affects politics here domestically, and how people react to that once the economic realities of that set in. Now, there's been some interesting changes happening in China at the highest levels of government in the last couple months. The Communist Party in China got rid of term limits for the Chinese president, which means that President Xi will likely be in office for at least another 10 years and maybe longer. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's a tendency to be, I want to say, dictator, because China has a long tradition of dictatorship, and so the leadership will be balanced with some kind of institutional checking. Otherwise, it will be dangerous. While we advocate constitutional democracy and the rule of law, yet in China, people believe a person's wisdom and their power.
Yeah.
If you ask the average Chinese what the most important thing in life or in the country's affair, they will say power. So that you could see even the ordinary Chinese, they will try to seek power. Whenever they got power, they have the kind of connection with the power. They feel more confident.
So what do you think is driving this change? Is this President Xi pushing this, or is this other people in the Communist Party? I mean, what is behind this change? Is he trying to sort of be a Mao-like figure and create a cult of personality?
As I told you, the Chinese tends to believe that without concentrated power, you can hardly do anything. That means the more concentrated the power is, that means you are more powerful man or politician. So the people say, we support President Xi and ask him to do anything we support. And then that could make China better. They believe so. Yet some people don't agree, right? And then those who disagree will be punished or be marginalized.
Right.
Marginalized, so that means by and by they will lost their saying.
Right.
So that's a way. And then people who try to flatter people with power, then he got more benefits.
Right.
Then the other people will imitate this kind of behavior.
Right.
And that makes the country as a more and more backward, regress, rather than progress.
Right, you run into the danger of a leader who is not getting good advice from people because nobody wants to offend him. I think some people think that's a bit of a problem even in the Trump administration because he demands this absolute loyalty from the people who work for him.
Yeah, so personally, I think that Trump would probably admire Xi Jinping's power.
Right.
Yet he understands that in U.S. he could not be possible like Xi.
Right. Now, there's a lot of things happening in China domestically with a sort of tightening of the surveillance state. You hear about this idea of social credit scores, where Chinese citizens are now going to be ranked based on their social media activity and essentially their loyalty to the government. and that can affect things like whether they can get credit to buy a home or take out a credit card. Do you see this sort of things are sort of tightening in terms of control?
Yes, it's kind of things that four or five decades ago, Chinese were all controlled by the Mao's leadership. At that time, people they have the whole code system. You cannot move from one city to another freely, and you can never find another job if you were punished by your own unit. And then even the people who try to go to university or to go schools without political permission, you can hardly do anything. And so I think that now they just try to resume this kind of the way of controlling people.
Yeah, and I think there's also an effort to tighten even further the internet controls. I know that virtual private networks have been cracked down on, and there's really an effort to control information.
Yeah, when you travel in China,
yeah.
how do you resolve the problem to get the access to internet?
Well, so I know that many people, when they travel, they use VPNs or virtual private networks, but I believe those are actually outlawed in China. So it's not legal, strictly speaking. So I wanted to go over to the North Korea issue, because this is such an amazing story that's happening. Just last week we had the leader of North Korea and the South Korean president meet in the demilitarized zone. That was an amazing event in world history, was it not?
Yeah, it's to me more like a grand shoe, because I don't believe the Kim. I don't believe Kim tried to pursue a real peaceful results. What he needs is more financial support, and because this country is really poor, except the King's family. So he tried every effort to get more resources and assistance from the international community, from China, from Russia, from U.S., because domestically they don't have the capability
Right.
to produce by themselves.
Right, they're dependent on resources from China and from other places. So you get the sense the noose is tightening around the neck of Kim Jong-un and his associates, and they're looking to make a deal, or at least pretend to make a deal, in order to loosen the economic restrictions.
Yes, like the South Korea leader, he hoped that he get the peaceful results, and that the two parts can combine eventually. But I don't believe that story.
Yeah.
And then I think like a hooligan, the hooligan always try to make deal with other gangs.
Yeah.
And if you try to persuade him not to do it again, he
Yeah.
promise you everything, and then later on he would do
Right.
it. Yeah.
And of course, in the past, the Kim family has made deals with the international community, with the United States on their nuclear program, and then reneged on those deals. Now, with the South Korean president, do you think he genuinely believes that they can make a deal and that there can be a unified Korea? Or is he, maybe